Well, hi once again, everybody. How are you keeping? Now, that is a loaded and frankly rather corny question as I sit here setting up a show that's all about the art of goalkeeping. See what I did there? Now, I'll be joined from England by a special guest as former keeper David Priest shares his insights into a much understood part of the game. So in short, today we'll be doing this, discussing just why and how often pundits get it so wrong, so often about keepers. Also, we'll be revealing who he thinks is the best goalie in the Premier League right now. And as ever, we'll be rounding up the week in social media today via our fans forum, because Michelle Holland's with us as ever, and that segment is, of course, her baby. Figuratively, of course, as otherwise it would just be weird. Anyway, moving on, Michelle. How are we engaging with the audience today?
Well, we're not going to be weird. We are going to get a little bit deep, emotionally speaking, as we're asking, are goalies misunderstood? Well, lucky for us, as John said, Mr. Priest will be shedding some light on the intricacies of their role. And once you've heard from David, let us know if he enlightens you at all. Plus, yeah, we just can't help ourselves, can we? We'll be rating the current crop of goalie talent in the Premier League, and we want to know who makes your top three. Right, here is what's on Twitter, and this is from Mangesh so far, who says, if David's top pick isn't De Gea, tell him to buzz off, John. Strong words there. We will just have to wait and see, won't we?
Strong words are not very wise words, Mangesh, if you've got any knowledge of the way our guest deals with people on Twitter. And me as well, for that matter. Anyway, let's move on, shall we? Today I'm joined by a man who made nearly 300 senior appearances as a goalkeeper for clubs in England, Scotland, Denmark and Iceland. Now he's a journalist, broadcaster and podcaster with a reputation for offering original, insightful commentary on the game. So, here we are then. David, thank you very much for joining us. First of all, tell me how and when you moved into media work, and do you find the written and spoken word anywhere near as fulfilling as you did playing football?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, first of all. It was simply something that I enjoyed doing, was writing. I started from an early age and just kept it up by keeping diaries and turning it into training diaries. And then later on in my career, so started to think about what I was going to do afterwards. I did a journalism degree at Stafford University with the PFA. And from then on, it was towards the end of my career, just gradually just eased my way into it, and it was a great starting point for me. Yeah, absolutely, and that's great to hear that. Now, I'll say this as well, you're a very welcome addition to the ranks of journalists and pundits, thanks to your specialist knowledge and ability to articulate. Now, speaking for myself, as someone who's spent his career seeking comments and insights from pundits into footballing situations, I've always felt that we've been pretty poorly served when it came to people offering credible opinions on goalkeepers. You know, one guy I have worked with quite a bit made a telling point recently. I'm talking about Mark Schwarzer, the very mild-mannered Aussie who kept goal for Middlesbrough, Fulham, Chelsea and Leicester. He came on uncharacteristically strong, as you could see there with those comments about the standard of punditry when it came to analysing keepers. But he has a point, though, doesn't he, David, about what we get served up with? If we think about all the intricacies about how we go into football with styles of play, and we analyse the managers, we now have referees in studios to analyse decisions made by the officials, and it's probably the one area that's been neglected up till now, and hopefully, like with what Mark's doing and perhaps myself, that's starting to change.
Now, obviously, you know, just in terms of the sheer numbers, you're not going to get as many goalkeepers on panels as you do outfield players. But tell me this, how many outfield players did you know who really took an interest and gained knowledge of what you guys do, that they would therefore be able to apply if they're asked a question about it? Because I often hear players saying, I know nothing about what goalies do.
Not a great deal. There was a lot of ignorance, really, and I think it was partly because there is a sort of, or there has been a separation between the two departments. You know, your goalkeeper goes off training in one area, and then you join up later in the session with the rest. But that's all changed. I mean, it changed 30 years ago or 25 years ago with the introduction of the back pass rule, and gradually, I'm surprised it took this long actually, but gradually over the years, you've seen a more hybrid footballer with goalkeepers becoming half footballer, half goalkeeper. And I think now there's starting to be more of an understanding, but I think it's just the fact that unless you've played in that position and you know yourself, it's not just any situation is just not a black and white situation.
Absolutely, yeah, that comes through. Now, broadly speaking, let me ask you this. What are the most commonly misunderstood parts of the goalie's game? I mean, I've done this, as I said, a long time, and I always hear things like they should never be beaten at the near post, or what's also trotted out, he went with the wrong hand there. I always used to hear that one, and we sort of nod sagely, don't we, as if these are unalterable truths. What I find interesting as well, I was very interested in the piece that you wrote, which we're showing just here, in the wake of that Liverpool-Spurs game last weekend. Amidst all the furore about the referee, linesman, VAR, diving, you actually heralded Liverpool keeper Lloris Karius's performance, and in particular defended his work on the punch clearance that was spectacularly smashed home from 30 yards by Victor Wanyama. Now, of course, Karius has had his critics all along, and we're going to get into a few of these right now. He did against Spurs, obviously in the wake of a Manchester City game. Earlier on, we got that one. But that Spurs game really interested me. Look at these negative comments. This was Jamie Redknapp, who works on Sky Sports. He was saying, that's your job as a goalkeeper. I know goalkeepers are taught to punch, but he just has to catch it. It's not even a difficult catch. Jamie Carragher, of course, again on Sky. If I was playing, I'd want him to catch it. He should catch it. He's not even at full stretch. It feels like he's close to it. Mark Lawrenson on the BBC saying, the original shot had no power in it. He could have clutched it to his chest. But this is what you get sometimes with foreign goalkeepers. They want to punch or parry it. Actually, only the former Reds legend, Graham Souness, offered any kind of support to Karius for his performance. He said, I don't think he's done a bad job. It's a difficult one because he's diving across. Modern keepers will do that 9 times out of 10. So, was it the pundits' reaction to that particular incident and Karius in general that prompted the piece you wrote?
Yeah, I think you have to understand that they have a short time frame to come up with a soundbite or an opinion, and it doesn't really give the time for well thought out opinion. I think the one that kind of drew me to write the piece was that Mark Lawrenson comment about foreign keepers when. And I think we can all recognise, especially over the last 30 years, that foreign goalkeepers that have came to the Premier League have enhanced the league and surpassed what everyone thought was one of the strengths of the English game in goalkeeping. So I think that was a bit of a strange one. I think my point was that there was a lot of things going on in front of him defensively. There was a big area in that near post that needed to be filled by Matip and Van Dijk that they neglected to do. They were very slow in get back in defence. And once he made the decision to punch, I take the chances of Wanyama scoring from that position every time, because 99 times out of 10 that ends up in the back of the stand.
Yeah, and that was just remarkable, wasn't it? Just quickly, a follow-up on that one. Very often a goalkeeper, particularly the two at Liverpool, will perform with so much prejudice against them right from the get-go. Before they even lay glove on a ball, someone's looking to criticise them. That must make it even tougher.
Yeah, and I think that, especially in the case of Lloris, he has had a great start, and the biggest plus for me in the game against Spurs was the fact that his all-round game, just looking at him, he looked so much confidence. Everything he did his catching was a lot cleaner. There was a couple of incidents in the second half that showed a little bit of insecurity, but from what he has been playing like to the game on Sunday, he's made great strides. But also, when we look at Liverpool, that there has to be a caveat put in that it's the way that Liverpool play. Yeah. The high line, it makes goalkeepers vulnerable. The only mistake I would say was in Liverpool's case is that they haven't acquired goalkeepers since Jurgen Klopp came in that suit his style of play.
See, that's the insight that we're getting from you, and I noticed also the way you spoke about Hugo Lloris's performance the other day as well. The interesting thing about that for me is that you were highlighting things. This headline's a bit... the headline meant nothing. I was just showing you there Lloris with that lovely Salah goal going there. Interesting to see that you took a goalkeeper's stance on how he performed, but it was also a game that highlighted the perils keepers are facing these days when they come off their line to meet an on-rushing and perhaps offside striker. Karius adjudged to have brought down Harry Kane. The following night in the Premier League, Thibaut Courtois likewise on Gerard Deulofeu. Now, that's a problem here. Liverpool fans, obviously, in particular, have an opinion on this, but it strikes me virtually 100% of the time, these situations, i.e. striker running through, keeper coming out, end in a penalty. So what is a goalkeeper going to do? And how do you watch situations like that?
Yeah, well, I wrote a piece in the Times about this morning just because I noticed something that happened over the past 3 years, that's out of 27 penalties that were given away by goalkeepers, Thibaut Courtois had given away 5 of them, sort of 18.5% of them. So there's perhaps, I was just looking at something, maybe if there was a small weakness in his game because his all-round game is excellent, that maybe that's it. And I think in some of these situations, they are split-second decision. You're not really having any time to think about it. You're using past experiences an instinct to make those decisions and come to those decisions. The difference between the two with Karius and Thibaut Courtois the other night was you have to assess what is the danger, if there's a real danger. Harry Kane come through in goal, he's got a real chance of scoring there, so there perhaps was a need for Karius to come out. But with Thibaut Courtois, you see that Deulofeu's going wide, there's a defender shadowing him. Does he really need to be there?
Yeah.
I didn't think so.
And like it or not, when they feel that contact, they're going to go down. David, stick around. Take a little breather there. That's his take on a couple of recent issues affecting goalkeepers. After the break, I'll be asking him to talk us through his picks when it comes to the best in the business. And I suspect he won't be trotting out all the lines we've grown used to.
Coming up, David Priest is put on the spot with his pick for top 3 goalies in the Premier League. Give us your shout as to who makes it to the top of your podium. I'll be checking in on your comments when we come back.
Welcome back. David Priest is with us, and he's offering some genuine insight into the art of goalkeeping and maybe exploding a few myths along the way. Now I'm going to ask him to focus on the current crop of Premier League goalkeepers and to rate them. But before we do that, let's look at some numbers and see what, if anything, they tell us. To start off with, the Premier League's official website lists the number of saves made by keepers so far this season. So you could have a look at this and you could see that you've got Fabianski there, ahead of De Gea. You've got Pickford, Butland, Matt Ryan of Brighton in there. But then you look further down the list and you see that Ederson of Man City's down in 18th, Hugo Lloris 16th, and Thibaut Courtois of Chelsea, who we spoke about just now, in 15th. You'd expect that, wouldn't you, though? Because saves, in terms of total number, tends to reflect the team's strength, especially. Right. I just wonder why David De Gea is so far up the list. That's an anomaly. But David, if I can come back to you now, what stats would we really want to look to in terms of an accurate assessment of a keeper? Would it be sort of number of saves to shots faced percentage, for instance?
I think that the one thing that should be said, that especially coming from the analysts themselves, it is difficult to quantify a lot of what is deemed the strength or factors in being a good goalkeeper. And if you look at something like somebody who is good at organising their defences, communication, you can't really quantify things that when they are very important parts of the game. I think expected goals and expected goals against has been a good indicator of how goalkeepers have done in relation to not just the shots that they're saving, but it rates the shots to how difficult they are as well. So if you go for expected goals against and show that up against actual goals conceded, that's a good indicator. But like I said before, there's so much more to goalkeeping these days than just shot stopping.
Yeah, absolutely. What will we ever do without expected goals? Never thought I'd find myself saying that a year or two back, but there you are. Let's go through your top 3 right now, David. Let's see who makes it in reverse order. So we're going to start off with your number 3. Who would that be?
Ordinarily, it would have been Hugo Lloris. I think over the last few seasons since he came to Spurs, he's been a solid keeper. I really like the way that he plays. He's especially when he first came, he was very aggressive in his starting positions, and you'd often see him come flying out of his goal and heading the ball away. And I like that. I like the goalkeeper being the front foot. but also he plays deep in his goal, which makes him a very good shot stopper. But I think this season he's just regressed a little bit. Maybe he's making more mistakes than he usually would. So put in number 3, I'd have to go for Ederson, and simply because of his distribution, it's just been phenomenal this season. I think you see at the weekend, just he is that extra play. And like I said, it's taken 25 years for us to. Goalkeepers have always been very good with the feet. There's always been players who have been ex-outfield players who have been very good for the feet. But Ederson, he's just exceptional. He's taken things to another level.
Yeah, and he'll take one for the team, as we saw early in the season against Liverpool as well. So I can fully understand that one. So Ederson 3, who's 2?
I've gone for Thibaut Courtois, despite my piece about him this morning. His all-round game is brilliant, and there's no surprise that he's on the shopping list of Real Madrid as well. Particularly for him, crossing is his biggest strength, taking high balls. Of course, somebody his size, it gives him a little advantage, but also his decision-making and taking crosses. It's every time I watch him, I'm just taken away by how easy he makes it look.
All right, here we go then. So, the big question, because we're going to get the viewers' take on this later on then, who's the Premier League's number 1?
It has to be David de Gea. And looking at the stats that you've shown there, out of all the top 6 keepers, he's the one that's making the most saves, and by far the most saves. And that's down to Manchester United is surprisingly giving up the most chances, the XG. They give him a lot of opportunities, but he's always there. He's very reliable. During the Van Gaal era, he was the one player who made that difference, who kept them where they should be. And a lot of people will criticise him because he doesn't force himself into coming situations for high balls a lot. Yeah. But because he's so strong on the line, then that's not a weakness. You very rarely see him making bad decisions or coming for balls that he shouldn't be.
Yeah, and let's also not forget that he overcame that early criticism which was entirely unfair as well, wasn't it? Just interestingly there, you've mentioned a Brazilian, a Belgian and a Spaniard. Who's England's number 1, David, in your opinion?
Do you know, my favourite is Jordan Pickford. I might be biased because I'm from Sunderland. I'm a Sunderland fan, and I've watched him progress all the way through the ranks from a young teenager to where he is now as an England international. And I think that I've got a lot of high hopes for him, and it hasn't gone swimmingly for him at Everton this year. The defence play in front of him has been very shaky. But he's still making saves, he's still performing well, and he's the type of character where that won't damage him. He thrives on pressure, and every step he makes up, he takes, and he just gets better and better. And he's almost like he's got that mentality and naivety of a young player that he's kept that, even though he's 23 now. He keeps the enjoyment in his game, and even though when he does make mistakes, you very rarely see it have any effect on him. So I think that's a huge strength in a goalkeeper.
All right, David, thank you so much for that. We'll have to do this again sometime because time's completely run away from us, and I'd really welcome your take on 1 or 2 other issues. So that's a booking. Come back and talk to us again soon. But we'll get the viewers' take on that just now, and that's going to be lively. Many thanks for talking to us.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
So, he said the hair, and we're going to ask the viewers, right?
We are indeed. We're totally milking it. So you can get in contact with us via Facebook Live. You can also get in contact with us via Twitter, because John's got a poll out there asking who your best stopper is, and then there's a list of names there. So feel free to head over to John Dykes FC. We've got some news coming then on Facebook Live. Let's go to Nazran's comment first, who says, Carrier showed a huge improvement at the back line, even though there was a minimal threat from Spurs. A little bit of a dig at the end there. Yeah,
well, it's a bit of a dig, but they still scored a couple, didn't they? I think what we have to realise here is that David's piece and a few people's comments about Karius were really put into the context of the fact that he has struggled so badly so far. I think the fact remains that if Liverpool's ambitions are to be, logically, winning the league, winning Champions League, they have to get one of the best goalkeepers in the world. And at the minute, I still don't think Karius and Mignolet fit that bracket anywhere near.
Right, well, speaking of best goalies in the world, Imran's comment, he says De Gea is the best goalkeeper in the Premier League, if not the world. United wouldn't be in the position where they are in recent seasons if not for him. Martin also has a comment on the top goalies on Facebook Live. And Martin goes on to say, top goalkeeper for him, De Gea. Pickford does come a close second, though, but he's let down by his defenders and team formation. They should be kept on a run of games to build up confidence and understanding with their defenders. Carriers should be given a run until the end of the season. And Sean David Lowe calls out his top stoppers too, which are De Gea, Cech and Lloris, because they've been in the league for a long time. Ederson's the only new face, and despite City being 13 points ahead, he'll need to stay at City a long time if he wants to compete with the likes of the others.
Yeah, I think I might... Cech's struggling right now. He has been one of the very best, not just in the league, but in the world. But things aren't really going for him just now. Maybe that is inevitable. I think I would have Ederson above, probably in second place. I think I'd have him in second. I'm not giving it away. I'd have him in second place in my three. I think he's got a lot about him. But De Gea, it's so hard to argue against De Gea. We'll have the result of that poll and a few more comments later on. We've got the Fans Forum on its way next.
After the break, we revisit that Liverpool-Spurs game, or rather, you do, as it's time for Fans Forum. Plus, we find out if John really is a fan of Rihanna. I mean, who isn't, right?
OK, so I think we all agree that was fascinating. Now, hopefully, Michelle will have some more goalkeeping-related comments from you later on. But for now, she's getting busy with the game as seen through the social media filter that is this week's Fans Forum.
Yes, thank you very much, John. Now, if you are a footy player on social media, you know you can never shy away from the inevitable stick you'll get if your team, well, messes up. For Liverpool, I'd be hiding under the covers if I were any of their keepers right now. And seeing as we've gone on and on about goalies on today's show, it is only fitting that we start with one on today's Fans Forum. Liverpool were robbed against Spurs. At least that's what Reds all over the world are telling themselves to feel a bit better. Lloris Karius might have played one of his best games in a Liverpool shirt at the weekend, but perhaps it was only because something close and dear to him was on the line. It's no surprise the German does love a picture or two in his spare time. And another thing not at all surprising, Salah showing everyone yet again why he's one of the world's best at the Mo. For so long, no one has quite rivaled the GOAT. Wait, hang on a minute, my bad. Yeah, thanks for the clarification, Anthony. Liverpool's saviour week after week, so much so, he looks like this now. Oh, Mo, yeah, looking a bit rough there, mate. John Moss and co might have caused you to drop 2 precious points, but hey, Liverpool fans, there's always a silver lining. And you can thank Conte's Chelsea for that. This was their chance to leap back above the Reds, but they only went and got themselves humiliated by Watford. Although, you know what? If you've been around long enough, it's just like the good old days, isn't it? Just about everyone is trying to take credit for the Blues' little downfall. United fans adamant the special one deserves all the plaudits. And then there's the London neighbours. I mean, come on. You didn't think Wenger would have let Giroud go over to the dark side for any other reason now, did you? Speaking of Arsenal, Look at this new and invigorated side go. Or could it be that the Ev, they just aren't the best side around, are they? Gunners are so used to being disappointed, they don't quite know what to do when they're good. But surely it's something they can all get used to, just like this user pointed out. The Emirates had a special visitor though, and no, I don't want to be rude, it wasn't Sam Allardyce. Good luck charm perhaps was Riri. But who cares about that? At least there's someone like Victor out there asking the all-important questions. Well, that is it for this week's Fan Forum. You love a bit of Rihanna, don't you, John?
What do you take me for? And don't think I'm going to start calling you Mimi or anything like that either. On with the football, please.
Right, on with the football. On with your poll, shall we? The results I can reveal. I don't really think it's a surprise. A massive win for David De Gea.
Wow.
73% of the vote. The second place was Ederson, not even close, with 17%. Poor old Londoners there, actually. If you look at it's north versus south here, isn't it? Courtois and Lloris.
And there's a divide. I'll tell you something interesting about this, Michelle. When I first put that poll out earlier on, for some reason or other, it didn't go very far. Whatever. So I sort of, reloaded it. And at that stage, it was Ederson who had about 70%. And the Man United fans went berserk. And it looks like they mobilised. That's a great response there and a big win.
Absolutely not having any of it, were they? Right, let's talk more about some stoppers here. Nazran shouts for Nick Pope and Lucas Fabianski should be in top three after strong performances from most keepers throughout the season. De Gea is a definite pick each season.
Yeah, I think Nick Pope really has to be saluted. Didn't think he'd be the first choice goalkeeper, obviously, until Heaton got injured for Burnley. So for him to do what he's done has been remarkable, really. Fabianski, when you consider that he has been keeping goal behind the leakiest defence you've ever seen in recent years in the Premier League, he has been truly remarkable. In fact, there's some real unsung heroes, I think, right now. So what's Subi saying there?
Yeah, a lot of talk about the potential of United losing De Gea, and that's what Subi says. Losing him would be a massive loss for United. Without him, even United is in a rebuilding situation. They should say goodbye to the Premier League title for a few more years if he goes.
What a downer. Let's not dwell on the negatives. Let's stay on the positives. Michelle, thanks so much for orchestrating all of those positives. Really enjoyed your input today, as ever. We'll see you again very soon. Bye now.
Thank you.